Hello everyone, and welcome to Spill the RT. I'm Eamonn, and here is Josh. Hi Josh.
Hey folks, hey Eamon, how you doing? How's your week been?
I'm good. All is great. Everything is going fantastically. It's been a very fun-filled January, but it's freaking freezing still, Josh.
Well, we should mention before we get into the episode, right? There's fires in LA, all
There is.
kinds of things have been going on. So we do want to say we're dropping down below. There's some information about donation fund that's been set up. There's a $12 million fund and growing to help the artists
Absolutely.
directly in the area. And so obviously our thoughts go out to them. But as we're
Mhm.
taping this, there's still an ongoing situation. So we'll cover that more at some point in the future.
Absolutely. We're all sending all the love in the world to all of those who were affected by that horrible situation over in California. So sending you all the love in the world.
Yep.
Um,
Yet the next place. It's going around, folks. It's
yes.
coming, it's going.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Today we have quite the lineup of stories, Josh. Where are we heading to? What's happening? What's going
Oh,
on?
oh my goodness. So this week, folks, more creative work enters the public domain, and you won't believe this one. The Grand Egyptian Museum opens. Catalan's banana buyer kills critical coverage. Say that three times fast. A Chinese court declares plagiarism for the first time. Oh my goodness. And shocker, art fairs suck, especially even for the gallerists. I'm totally stunned on this one. All that and a brand new guest are up next as we spill the art tea. Welcome to
Yes.
episode 32.
32. Oh my goodness. My goodness. We're actually almost, that's very funny because next week we're episode 33 and I'm actually 33 next week too. Imagine that. Oh, the age.
I'm not going to say a word because I'm not 33 anymore.
Josh, before we bring on our guest, what are our friends to do?
Like, share, subscribe, comment, send three friends our way. Make a request of something of us. Are you a creative? Are you actually enjoying listening to us while you're doing your own
Yeah,
work? How about you let us know you want to be a guest and come on down? We're always looking for
absolutely.
new.
Absolutely. Hit us a line at hello@newacollective.com. And if you are interested, it doesn't matter if you're a singer, songwriter, if you're an artist, if you're a playwright, if you're someone who just wants to talk about art, that's all okay too. So, without further ado, let's bring on our guest, Maurice Quillinan. Come on down. Hello, Maurice. How are you?
Hello, Eamon. Hello, Josh. How are you? Hello from
Hello, how you
Ireland.
doing?
Maurice, where are you tuning in
Hey, Josh.
from?
Limerick, Ireland.
Limerick. My goodness. All the
Yeah.
way in
Very near Shannon
Ireland.
Airport if you're flying over it.
Very
Yeah.
good. Very good.
Shannon Air Traffic Control deals with all the North Atlantic flights coming from North America, Canada to Europe. So you'll be flying over us.
Oh, brilliant, brilliant. Well, look, when we're flying over Ireland again, which I usually fly into Ireland, I don't fly past it. But
Yeah.
when I fly to America to see Josh, whenever that happens, I'll say hello to you, Morris. I'll look down and I'll wave at all of the little buildings and Morris.
Be there.
Morris, we're going to find out all about you and your work as we get towards the end of the show. However, we're going to go straight into our first story, and it's Popeye the Sailor Man. Josh, where are we going?
So as we've talked about before, I guess technically we're just going off into the interwebs because this is about public domain and what people can do with whatever the hell they want now. And so in the last episode, you had a nice little calendar of each day of January as things enter the public domain. Well, guess who's now entered? I'm Popeye the Sailor Man.
Do
Except
do
now
do. Who
I'm
lives in a
Popeye the Slasher.
caravan?
There are three slasher films already in the works involving Popeye.
Oh my goodness, that's
That's how
crazy.
crazy this shit is.
We love to hear it. We love to hear it. We love to hear it. Here it is. Look, here's the poster artwork for that movie. I just thought this was hilarious. And here's Popeye the Slayer Man. Slay!
Aha! But here's even worse. For those that are fans of Tauntaun, remember the little kid with the dog going out exploring?
Yes.
Tauntaun as well has now entered the public domain. So
Oh my
I don't
goodness.
even know the weird shit that's going to show up from that one. I'm not touching it.
Mars, were you a fan of Popeye?
Oh, massive. Absolutely, yeah. I always ate my spinach when I was a kid, so, I never got the muscles, but then I'm sure I was doing so. Maybe I should have taken steroids as well at the same time.
I'm sure he was on some form of steroids as well. I don't think
Oh,
you can get those sort of guns with just spinach.
Well, did you
Yeah,
ever notice though they were
maybe
only
he'd
his
be in
arms?
Jason Bourne 7.
What did you say, Mars?
Maybe he'd be in Jason Bourne 7 as well, yeah, these guys always kind of move around and maybe get a cameo on Bond too.
I think you're right, Josh, though, as well. It's like it was only his arms. He had like these big, really strong arms, and then it's just like, bing.
Just think about that for a while and do your own imagination a favor.
Josh, mind out of the gutter, Josh.
I think the larger issue here is it's this idea of like repurposing things and what that can mean. And I think at a certain point in the past, when we conceptualized this, it was about making something that would have a certain kind of artistic quality based on previous people's work. This is about kind of more crash commercialism, right? It's literally just about how can I make money and what's going to attract people's interest. And literally the juxtaposition of something like Tauntaun in a porn film is like exactly what's going to come of this, precisely because it's going to attract eyeballs. And it's the eyeball economy, right? That's...
And I suppose is then, do we ask the question, like, are they going to respect the integrity of the original character and the artist who created them? Probably not. Look, he's even laughing. That's terrible, Josh. That's terrible. Maybe they do have a sensitivity towards them.
Sure, man. Do you think there's a respect for the original character there?
No, it's Popeye the Slayer, man. Get it right, Josh. Come on now. Well, that story has been slayed. And we're moving on to the Grand Egyptian Museum, which opens in Cairo. A beautiful building, actually made by Irish architects, would you believe?
I do believe. And this is kind of unique too, because what this is this huge, it's 7 different areas in the museum. It's hundreds of thousands of square feet. And apparently it completely repositions the way that Egypt is talking about itself from a non-colonial perspective. And I think that's what really makes this more interesting. Not just, hey, look, a new museum opened. It's that in the past, any idea of Egypt came from the idea of like, well, the British showed up and found these things. And this is more about like, no, Egyptian civilization goes back thousands of years. And it's more about a kind of self-representation of the culture.
Okay, wow, cool. So it's housing all of the Egyptian artifacts, I assume, is it like generally?
But staged in a way that kind of like, instead of it, oh, look, we were nothing until we were found. It's more like, no, we've been doing this for thousands of years. Here's the continuity of our culture.
Okay.
Up to and including, right, present day Egyptian work by current Egyptian.
Well, I think even like, I suppose what I really like about this is like, I love architecture. So I'm going to like talk about the architecture because I just think it looks incredible. And even, I suppose, the forms in which the architectural design took on are really kind of reminiscent of Egyptian culture, and I think that's something that I suppose is really great. And like even looking at this, even the space here just looks vast. You're right. It was like 5.2 million feet, I think, is what the overall space. Like huge.
Yes,
huge.
What do you think, Maurice? What are you on this?
Oh, it's really beautiful.
It's not just a kind of historical, you know, the architectural design is not just historical. It brings in a lot of modern elements to it, and like you can see the different materials that they use. It's just incredible. But yeah, and I wonder, is that like somewhere that's very accessible in Egypt, or is that somewhere that, like, you know, is it in a place that is very built up, or what way is the space?
Really, this is in the heart of like downtown tourism area in Egypt, in Cairo. Okay, and Cairo, cool. For those that don't know, is like it's like old Cairo and there's new Cairo. And new Cairo has been incredibly developed and built up, and it's like 7 times the size of what Cairo used to be. And Cairo itself was like the largest place in the Middle East at one point, et cetera, right? And so I think part of it is that it's this idea that when you think of Egyptology, it's about Egypt in the past. Okay. And this is kind of saying, both implicitly and explicitly, no, there's a modern day Egypt, and like modern day Egypt has this connection going backwards. Okay. And I think we're used to thinking about that in the context of Europe, right? Of like castles and things that go back 1,000 years as like self-generating out of a European culture. And Egypt's like, no, well, we've been around even longer. And so many of the things that we have today aren't like just in the past. It's also part of who we are now.
And tell me now, Josh, so now that Mr. Beast is now taking an interest in Pisa, or Giza even, and the fact that he's really modernizing the pyramids, do you think this will influence the influx of tourism to this particular gallery?
Well, museum. As we talked about before, I think what you see there is like the opposite sides of exactly what the modern world can do, right? Yes. On the one hand, they want tourism. And obviously a place like this, they want to attract people's eyes because then that sends a message to the world. But is Mr. Beast the guy you want renting out your hall and like turning it into a concert?
Absolutely. Mars, are you familiar with Mr. Beast's work?
One thing that struck me there with the photograph is the area around the actual sculptures is very fussy compared to the clean cut sculptures. Just kind of wondering if what the concept behind that is.
Probably to do exactly that, is that so that because the pieces themselves are quite simplistic in their form, that I suppose it has the the ability to be able to push some of the aesthetics so that it's a little bit more, I don't know, messy or extreme, or probably a bit more.
Maybe, juxtaposition, maybe.
Yeah. Potentially, I don't know. I think I felt that in itself, the museum is a piece of design work and is paying real homage to Egyptian culture, and I think that in itself is kind of like, even with some of the textiles that they've used, the materials, the shapes, the different forms that are put in place, it's very much Egyptian, and it's I think because it's done by it was done by an Irish firm, but I think that it was. The firm is still quite connected to Egypt. There's still quite a massive heritage link between them, and I think that's why they got the gig in the first place. Also, I'm sure that their design integrity is quite good as well, considering they pulled off a 5.2 million square feet building. I don't know. I think it works for it personally, but
they're incredible surfaces, all kind of interlocking. It's an artwork within itself.
Absolutely.
I mean, architecture is sort of sculpture you're living in, and I think they've taken, certainly from the photographs, they've taken one step further. They're doing something similar with the Parthenon as well in Greece.
Oh, cool. Okay, very good. We will have to look into that story and follow up with that in the future. Well, that's that tea spilled, and we're moving now into Cryptoland again, a little bit, but also reflecting back a little bit on our Catalan story, because we just are mad for the banana. Josh?
So, for those that may remember, Justin's son spent $6 million of cryptocurrency and bought the third version of the comedian Catalan's banana duct tape nonsense, whatever. And then he ate it. But then there was critical coverage, right? So I guess we're back to the interwebs at the end of the day. There was critical coverage of him and about the crypto that was used to do this, because he's apparently not the nicest of guys, doesn't have the best of reputations. I don't want to say something that's going to get us canceled here. Oh no,
God forbid.
But so there's a major crypto news investigation that was being done, and then he had it killed. So the critical coverage just literally disappeared. Okay. So, of course, in the modern world, what that simply means is there's now a story about the story instead of the original story, right? We don't necessarily know what the original coverage was going to say, but instead now we are talking about the fact that whatever it was, guess what? Now it wasn't allowed to be. So you're better off just let them say what they want and let it die a slow death in the background and try to object in some kind of way, because it always gets caught. It always gets found out in some way.
There was this article, and I put up the kind of little extracts there of what it was actually the beginning of the article that was published back in December. But I suppose wasn't there a company takeover or something, and he was just asking. There was some weirdness that happened, and I wonder why he would really care all that much, given the fact that he really didn't care in the fact that he actually did it. So.
Honestly, anytime I touch anything involving crypto, there's always it's like peeling back layers of an onion that make no sense. Yeah. It's like looking at layers of the Matrix, right? It's because they intentionally weave this stuff so that it's difficult to figure out exactly what's happening. And that's part of the point, right? It's intentionally trying to create chaos that lets them somehow profit. So I can't tell. Where did the 6 million come from? Who knows? I just.
And even Trump has now initiated his own cryptocurrency, and apparently it's worth millions now already. But it's crypto is a bit of a strange one. I mean, what you could do is get in real quick and then get out real quick.
Yeah, but it was an incredibly brilliant marketing exercise. I mean, the money he spent on it was probably the interest he earned, on his fortune in the last hour. So I mean, it's utterly irrelevant.
Yeah, it's just pocket money to him.
Totally, yeah.
Well, but as you say, it's really more about
Egypt to kind of fall into that stuff. We should just ignore it.
Well, it's the society of the spectacle, right? And so the whole idea is it's not about long-term engagement with anything. It's just this little thing that catches your interest. And look over here. Oh, look over here. Yeah. We're all supposed to turn into squirrels. We're just supposed to be chasing. And I personally, I resent it incredibly, right? all three of us here, we are painters. It takes time and energy to do these things. It's not about being a squirrel chasing something. It's just like
Did you, yeah, did you see the video of the actual sale? I mean, it was TV. It was brilliant TV. So I mean, was it Sotheby's? I can't remember.
Yeah, Sotheby's sold it. Yeah,
Sotheby's.
Sotheby's. I mean, it was just you couldn't have better TV. Like, we all watched it. We all reposted everything. I mean, we all got into it.
That's so funny because I was watching that there's a Jeremy Springer documentary on Netflix now, and it's like talking about literally that. Is that like what is the most insane possible thing that we can broadcast on this to get the figures up? And like you're right, it is good TV.
Yeah, brilliant TV. Yeah. And these guys probably spend that kind of money just organizing a party.
Yeah.
So I mean, he got worldwide attention for this where he wouldn't for the party.
But I think that bringing up Springer is a good point here, Eamonn, because so much of what that documentary is talking about is like the behind the scenes changes and machinations and control and intentionally prodding people and setting things up in a way to make it look like it was a natural explosion of human upset when people had been primed for it. And so
completely. Yeah, it's completely curated. The whole thing is like is so specific, and they're doing everything very intentionally.
Yeah.
Which is,
but I think what Justin Sun does, that's exactly the same thing, right? Yeah. It's a curated experience as opposed to the experience itself. And so I would draw a direct line between Mr. Beast and the goddamn pyramid for 99 hours or whatever, and this guy spending $6 million on camera and then eating the banana. None of this is really about substance. This is more about presentation of image and the reproduction of that image.
TV at its best.
Yeah. Well, I say that we get Mr. Beast to give us his followers. As I said before, we get your man from who bought the banana to give us some sponsorship, and we'll be away in a hatch.
We should give these people enough coverage. They should be giving us something.
Just give us a little few. Like, I mean, 100 grand to them is nothing. 100 grand and 1,000 followers. That's all we want. It's not that much. Okay.
It's mere coffee money.
Literally, like it's the cost of an espresso. Right. Before we go crazy.
It will be.
Speaking of which, as
we're spilling tea and we're going to take a break on that note. So here we go. Let's talk about New Collective. New Collective, a visual art community, is home to 20 artists and hundreds of their artworks with fresh work added weekly to our online collective at newcollective.com. Here you will also find our new journal featuring articles and podcasts, which are also available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok, like this video, and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss us out on spilling the art tea in our weekly roundups That's where it's at, people. Follow us, like, share, subscribe, all of that business. And of course, we still have the swag. Where is that swag, Josh? Have you got some swag?
Oh, of course I have mine.
Look at that swag. Spill that RT in our little mug. See, we got some merch, Maurice. We've got some merch. How exciting. We're so official. We're like Jeremy Springer Show Part 2.
Yeah, you get 2 bananas into that mug.
You get 2. I don't know what size bananas you have, but
I don't even.
I'd barely fit one in, to be honest.
We're using the genetically modified ones here.
Oh well, of course there's that. Well, that's how we get them all year round, Maurice, because the GMOs are real.
Yeah.
Oh well, that's where it's at. So everyone, make sure that you do like, share, subscribe, follow us on all of the channels that we are on, which is including Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn for all those business folks that do follow us on LinkedIn, and TikTok for those who are not living in America. So there you go, because apparently it's shut down in America now. For now.
Speaking of, that's a nice transition.
Well, where are we transitioning to?
I guess off to Beijing and Belgium we go. I guess technically it's Beijing. So for the first time ever, I'm sure everybody in the world is well aware that copyright is a very difficult thing to have enforced, particularly in a place like China.
Yes.
Knockoff culture is literally the culture. That's how people make their money. But for the first time ever, a Chinese court upheld. So this has already been a finding that this had been ripped off and stolen, plagiarism. But this was an appeals court that upheld that ruling. So for the first time ever, someone who's an artist has been held accountable for having used the work of another artist. And so this Belgian artist and a very very famous Chinese artist, and apparently, like, most of his work is nothing but plagiarized from this other artist. How about that?
Okay. Well, I believe that this was an order for them to pay $670,000 for the plagiarism of this particular artwork. And as you can see here, the differences between them are like they're very few. It's so like for like, you know, they're so similar, it's ridiculous. And even in the structure, the lines in the backgrounds, the layout, and the positioning of the different grid images, you know, they're so alike.
Dare I say it's like a bad copy paste?
Yeah, it is. It's funny, the one on, so looking on your screen now, it's those who are watching this visual podcast. On the left, there is the image of the French artists edition
Belgium.
of this Belgium. Apologies,
dare you?
Belgium. Sorry, I apologize. Of the Belgium artist, and on the right is Yongqing's edition of the piece. Which I think the value for the original of the Belgian artist was quite small by comparison. I think they'd got very little for it, or didn't have as much value. So fair play to them for pointing it out or finding it.
Well, that too should be pointed out. So the Asian artist who's been nailed for this was a very famous professor and artist in China, right?
Yes.
So he was very well known. And so that's why the value of having him, we talked about before, it's about the signature, right? And so with the right signature attached to the right thing, suddenly it's seen as having a higher value. Well, but if what you're attaching it to actually belongs to somebody else, it calls into question a lot of these sort of valuation schemes. And particularly in terms of China, it starts to have this issue of like, are you going to start to like actually hold people accountable?
Yes.
So it's a real puzzler in terms of where we're going next in modern day China of the 21st century. I'm trying to be politic here.
I love your diplomacy. What do you think, Maurice? What do you think of the artwork itself?
I'm amazed he couldn't even be bothered, you know, making an effort to make a version of it. You know, it's
Yeah.
But the thing is, you know, China has a very, very long history of copying work and
Yes.
selling it. I mean, there's a city north of Hong Kong, and you know, you walk around it and you see Michelangelo's everywhere, Rembrandt's everywhere, and they're brilliant. I mean, technically, they're absolutely amazing.
Yes.
Yes. You know, I mean, I don't know. I mean, artists have always copied other artists' work and done versions of it. You do to learn, and
I think that's okay when it's like, as we were talking about earlier, with the release of the Copyrightation Act for it, so that you can take on board and learn from other artists and learn from the great artists that have come and gone. But this is a living artist, and this is an artist who is very much a contemporary of them, and it's like, okay, great, you can copy and take inspiration, but if you're going to sell it for that much money, and claim that it's your design, it's your idea, and your concept, that's a different story altogether.
So it's interesting. I know an artist who went through the Beijing Art Academy. And so like the entrance exam is about being able to reproduce accurately. Much of the work is exactly that. But part of it's also that it's kind of like the way a myth works in the West, where the same story gets told again and again. And it's about putting your individual spin on a common story. And so the idea of like reproduction is balanced in, again, from what he told me is that then you're trying to balance that against doing it your way. This doesn't seem to be that, right? Like this is literally not about finding something from the past and bringing it forward. This is a contemporary artist who may be 15, 20 years younger than you. I think this guy is in his 70s, right? So it's finding someone who's younger, who's not yet been identified, and literally, like I say, kind of badly copy pasting. And so it's not about like innovating or injecting something new. It's literally just like, it's back to this idea of like crass commercialism.
No, it is.
I find it really incredibly lazy, you know.
Absolutely. But as you say so correctly, Maurice, like if they decided to say, okay, we're going to take inspiration from this, even change the color of the stripe in the background, like, I mean,
absolutely, yeah.
I mean, like, come on.
Or just put it into the computer and get the computer to play around with the images, spin them around or something. You know, or you should go and have a look at some graffitis on the walls in Berlin, you know, and where this kind of looks like this was kind of
Hey,
influenced by it.
hey AI, alter this painting so that it looks slightly different but the same.
Absolutely, you know. And the thing is, I mean, that's the thing as well. AI is going to do all this, you know. So, you know, maybe it's a precursor. It's a wake up call.
Yeah. Oh
We don't have
dear.
to aid and abet it. Don't get me started.
No,
Don't just
let's
don't.
let's not open up that kind of worms tonight, Morris, because I'm not ready. I'm not equipped. I'm not equipped. I'm not equipped.
Well, I know loads of artists who literally make copies of other artists and sell it as their own.
Yeah.
You know,
But that, and I think that's what's happening now as well with the likes of drop shipping and all that kind of stuff. You know, they're taking elements, throwing them onto Pomoke and selling them for whatever, and actually getting the money for it. More than the actual original artist to begin with, which is just ridiculous.
Well, but the end result is
albums somewhere.
it's just all going to become white noise.
Yeah.
And so I think
Yeah.
what's incumbent upon us who are trying to stay artists inside of that maelstrom is to figure out, well, what is it that you're going to do that's going to cut against that?
Yes.
If it becomes this world, like this just maelstrom of image that's just reproduced ad infinitum, ad nauseum, well, what is it that you can do that doesn't do that?
Yeah.
And I guess that's the driving question of my own work. It's like, how do I do stuff in the face of this?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I think artists, that's what we're incredibly good at. You know, we're really good at finding how we can get past that point and trying to find what is the alternative way that we can make this work for us and how can we get there. You know, and like, you know, at that,
But
let's build that up.
Yeah, but if you go beyond that and just look at art as a language,
Yes.
you know, and you develop that, then your visuals will develop out of that, rather than trying to, you know, change your visuals to kind of fit in or to make a thing.
We spoke about this with Frankie Curtis only a couple of episodes ago, where we were talking about how people just start copying any of the kind of more modern artists of today, much like Basquiat, for example. You know, they just do iterations of stuff that looks trendy, and they think that if we just adapt this style, then potentially we will also be able to be in that circle. When in fact, yeah, you might for a minute, but it's not going to be there for the longevity.
Yeah, but he didn't come up with anything new either. I mean, he just put together everything that he found in the subways and graffiti and stuff like that.
Yes, but I accept that, but also I feel that, yeah, he may have taken that on board, but he's definitely pushed it so that it was his own concept, and he kind of, yeah, graffiti is his own art form, but I feel like he still has the artistic integrity and license to do what he did.
There were many artists around Braque and Picasso doing very similar kind of
absolutely.
There were many people around Basquiat. There were many people around Harry. Like, pick whatever zone, whatever period in time. Like, it's not just about visual art, right? Like, there's people that are writing books at the same time as Hemingway or Faulkner or Shakespeare or right. Like, there's always it's this spinning electron multitude of things, some of which cut through and some of which don't.
Yeah.
And some of it cuts through because it's commercially viable, and some of it cuts through because it's trying not to be that. And
we're all inspired in some way. Right. Well, that's that tea spilt, and I'm going to move swiftly into our next topic, where we're going to check out the art fairs and what they actually do for us galleries now. But Josh is going to tell something different.
So to Miami we go.
To Miami we go.
It's not just all art fairs, right? In
No.
particular, it's this one fair in Miami that's supposed to be about, it's called Untitled. The whole point is you're cutting through the clutter, speaking of, and that you're doing things as a small gallery and you're putting things that you believe in. And guess what? You lose money and no one notices you. Shocker.
Yeah. Shocker. You say that. That's funny, all the small galleries and how they can go and cut through that. But how on earth? Well, if you've got what, $17,000 to be able to cut through that, here is, right, just to paint you a picture, folks.
That's $17,000 for 140 square feet.
140 square, like that's nothing. You'd fit so in that image there, you can see 10 pieces, of which 3 of them are large, 4 or 5 of them are large, and the rest are small. Yeah. Like, and it's just, how the hell do you make money back on those without having to charge 8, 9, 10 grand per piece in order to make any form of profit? And that goes to the gallery, not even to the artist.
This is all 5 figures, 6 figures. Like, there's no small sales in these kinds of fairs anymore. Yeah. What was funnier to me was this particular gallerist got more inquiries about the furniture that she had rented to have in her booth than the art on the walls. right? You want further proof of nothing but white noise and just, I don't even see it. It's just not even in front of me. I don't know anything better than that.
I hold my hand up high and I say that I'm not a massive fan of art fairs in general, because I feel like you go in and you're it's almost like a live version of Instagram. You've got 1,000 different pieces that you're surrounded by, and it's very hard to pick out or to let the art speak for itself, or let the art have some breathing space so that you can actually get involved with what that artist's voice is, or what they're trying to say, or where you're trying to get from it. And I just feel that the art fair, it just I don't know, it butchers that, I think. Maybe am I wrong? I don't know, that's my view on it anyway.
Trade
Art
fairs of any
galleries will
kind.
tell you that art fairs are not for artists. They're basically for making a presence in the art world amongst the other commercial
Yeah.
entities. That's all they are. So,
Yeah.
any really good group show, annual group show, will be much more interesting than any of these art
Absolutely,
fairs.
absolutely. And I totally agree with that, Morris. And I feel that, like, if you're doing a group show, there's some sort of thread that's through it that it allows
Yeah.
you to kind of connect with the art or the artists that are involved with it. Whereas these art fairs, I mean, you could have an artist that's showing daffodils in one corner and one that's doing an incredible, beautiful abstract painting that is revolutionary, but we're not going to actually see the difference of them because they're surrounded by so many different pieces.
Yeah.
Trade
You should get the
fairs.
fruit seller with a load of bananas in one of the stalls, selling,
But could you imagine if
with a
somebody
bit of
put a
duct tape on
banana
it.
with duct tape on one of those art fair walls? Is that going to work? No,
Absolutely.
it's not.
Well, actually, that's how it. That's actually been done in very different kinds of ways over the years. But trade fairs are trade fairs. They're not
Mm,
necessarily about sales per se, unless you're very well established, and then you're there precisely to be able to show the world the sales that you have
yeah,
made. Right? It's the typical chicken and egg kind of thing.
yeah,
I just think that there's no point in doing any of this. That the best way to develop is to develop organically.
yeah,
You may find a few buyers by taking where you're at from the Midwest and going to Miami, but you're
yeah.
not really going to develop long-term relationships because those people aren't going to come find you, right?
Mm,
So you're
Mm.
better off wherever you are developing what's around you, because those folks are going to then go looking for you because you're in their backyard.
yeah,
Yeah,
That's
absolutely. Yeah.
that's how artist colonies beget artist situations. Taos, New Mexico starts off as a place that's cheap and dry, and the next thing you know, you've got dozens and dozens of galleries. Like that's how that kind of stuff happens.
yeah.
Not
Yeah.
because you're like, oh, we're all gonna go over here now. Like, it's already
No,
too
it happens
late.
organically.
It does, and I think any artist that has longevity, as we spoke of earlier, is the one that's going to be prevailing, or that's going to have that sustained career. Whereas, like, if you're pushing yourself into a specific position, it's not really for the right reasons, and you're not going to have that organic voice or that organic presence.
Unless all you want to do is cash out. And
Yeah,
then we know that there's a very successful route to do that. But I don't. Why are you making art then? Why don't you just do something else? Just go
Yeah.
trade stocks or something, or buy crypto, or like I
but if
just
yeah, that's
all of
just
it is a maker.
that's just they're not makers. They're not. I don't think they're makers. I think they're I don't know, engineers almost.
Content creators.
Yeah.
Mark, cheers.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But it's like it's more a science than an art, and
Yeah.
not a science, and not a creative science like we like to
Yeah.
endorse. It's more
Yeah.
like a kind of like, this is the method, and this is the process, and we do this and we recreate this, and this is what works, and scientifically this is what, or statistically this is what's going to make money.
Yeah. And buyers like to see as well that sort of Joe Smith has, shown in Art Basel kind of all over the world. And people are going to say, well, it's obviously probably a better commodity. So, it's
Yeah,
going to sustain that. Think about galleries as well. They also have to support the price they've sold the artist's work down the line,
yeah.
so they have to keep that price. So they constantly have to keep, it's a lot of hard work for them as well.
It is, if they're willing to take it on. And see, that's, I feel as
Yeah,
well,
the big
in
ones
the
do, and they do
I,
it very well.
I feel that especially in larger cities, like, so I'm based in London, and I see that in a lot of what are called vanity galleries, where you can just
Yeah.
pay for a space, you put up a couple of pieces, and the gallery will promise you the world and its sister. And what you will get from that is probably nothing, only a big bill at the end, an invoice. And like, what good is that for you as an artist? It's not, because it shows that you are selling yourself short. It means you could have invested that elsewhere. You could could have done something better, or you could have just developed your practice and actually come to find that I'm actually not an artist, or yeah, this isn't for me. Maybe I should be just doing pots of flowers and still
Sentence, haven't
Yeah.
shown any of those places.
Yeah.
Or maybe
Yeah.
artists should just put their focus into making
Yes.
and let the rest of it just settle out wherever it goes.
Yeah.
Right? Just make. That's Warhol. That's the one thing with Warhol where I'm completely on the same page. Just make and make and make.
Yeah.
The rest of it will
That's your
figure
job.
itself out. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And David Lynch, God rest him. I mean, he's who's just recently passed, had very similar attitudes towards it all as well. It's
His
just
paintings were fantastic.
unbelievable.
Brilliant.
But
he
you
had
can't
The scale
worry.
of them as well.
But you can't worry about the money you'll make. You can't worry about
Nope.
the acknowledgement at the time. You have to worry about making the best work you can make. And then the rest of it will simply be what it'll be.
Definitely.
Speaking of which, I think we're done with that, but we're on to
Maurice, we're going to talk about you as a maker now, a maker and creator. So Maurice,
I've come out of my cave.
come out of your cave and start sparking color. So what is it that you're up to?
Okay, basically what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make, I'm very interested in the idea of meditation, not in this kind of a religious, spiritual sense, but the idea of, say, when we walk along the beach, we walk along the river, whatever, it's what we bring to that place.
Okay.
And in a sense, what we leave, nothing to do with memory and stuff like that. Basically, it's in a sense, stories that go through our heads or whatever, and they go into the river, whatever, they're just kind of washed away. So each piece I make I'm trying to, in a sense, make it a center for initiating a kind of a meditation, similar rather than going along the river. That's
brilliant.
what
And
I'm trying.
you've recently, yesterday only, had a very successful launch of your latest exhibition, which is where is this exhibition?
It's in Kilkenny. It's called Uncade Tina. It's a new gallery run by a fabulous young curator gallerist called Mary Doyle Burke.
Amazing.
And she's only at it, I think, about 2 years, but she's making huge headway in the art world. She's giving the space is very, very big, and so you kind of need big work. I have 25 works in it. I had this is part of a show I had in Limerick Museum back in November, and had only 8 pieces in that one, so it gives you an idea of the actual scale of the place. But she's incredibly good at promoting work.
Brilliant.
She's somebody who gets on really well with people, which is really important in the art business.
100%. Yeah, you need that drive. Brilliant.
She's around in many years to come, that's for sure.
Great. And so the work, how long is this work on show for at this gallery?
Until the 18th of February.
Brilliant. And so we have a couple of works that are featured in this exhibition, and we'll share one of them here. So this piece here is the first one. What is this? What is this about, this piece?
Basically, it's from the canal here in Limerick. It's what's called the Old Guinness Canal, when they didn't have proper road transport. All the Guinness is brought from Dublin by canals around Ireland. And unfortunately, now it's full of rubbish and junk and all kinds of things. But the thing is, when you actually look at the rubbish and junk, visually they're really interesting. So I'm basically making a combination between, sense, the beauty of things, where I put in the water lilies, because since Monet, water lilies are in a sense are kind of the gold star of beauty within paintings. So it's they're juxtaposed against the bits of metal and bits of rust and rubbish and everything that's actually naturally in the canal, and trying to make an image out of those. So it's creating a whole bunch of different kind of thought processes and thought patterns. Pollution is obviously wrong and bad, but it's kind of visually interesting to look at, especially when lots of bits of plastic and stuff float down. It's fascinating stuff. So that's really, really what I'm trying to do. I'm also trying to look at, I suppose, call to attention the fact that we are destroying our waterways. And it's something we really need to look out for, because there's just too many of us on the planet, and if we keep destroying the water, like, we just have nothing to drink. So a lot of countries don't. I was in Africa last year in Ghana, and by the year 2030 they will have 100 unusable days because it's too hot and they have no water. And that's coming back on us.
I find it really interesting how you've made the beauty out of that, and how that juxtaposition, I suppose, is between this beautiful painting that you've created and how visually appealing it is towards the reality of the fact that it is actually something that's so destructive.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's extraordinary. And I'm also kind of looking at, say, You got the ducks, water rats, you've got all the various creatures that are kind of living at fish and the thing and that.
Mm,
They're all kind of cohabiting this incredible kind of ecosystem. And
yeah,
it's
very
really
cool.
beautiful, actually. And it is incredibly meditative.
And we have this piece here of the hang, I'm assuming, of this previous
Yeah.
of this exhibition that's ongoing.
Yeah, that's the install. There's Mary there on the right, and the technician, Marco. He's from Italy. The piece itself is called Soldier Swimmer. I started some number of projects in Ukraine just before the war started, and we've continued the projects throughout the war to help artists in Ukraine. So we organized two auctions and got a lot of mentoring for Ukrainian artists. So this is essentially came from a photograph of basically a soldier who had been shot and or killed and was floating in the river. But yeah, I didn't want to make a literal visual translation of that. But I
Mm,
just thought, in a sense, that person is at peace now, and he's now part of the water. He will dissolve into the water. Um, the alphabet is the 26 letters, and you've got so 0 to 9 at the bottom. So basically, it's every book, it's every thought, it's every, um, I suppose, kind of idea that person may have had or may have wanted to kind of leave behind and kind of make up. So half the show is kind of about, in a sense, the idea of conflict, but also the conflict within us.
mm,
We have our own problems to solve as well. And we were all kind of wondering, well, what do we do with the Ukraine war? How do we help people? And in the end, it's like, how do you help your own community? And that's kind of what it boils down to. So, it's not necessarily helping, people outside, but it's also maybe good things happen here. Maybe something
mm,
good will happen to that for, say, Gaza, Ukraine, and various other spots.
definitely. Cool. And then this is a final piece that we'll share with our audiences today, and it's slightly different, but I quite like the
Mm.
coloring in this. It's a little different to the others.
Thank you. Yeah, again, it's metal that's kind of semi-submerged.
Mm,
But what I've started to play with some paint techniques, especially when paint runs and drips and it moves into each other, and it will form different shapes and different surfaces. So it's in a sense kind of creating another layer. So if you have lots and lots of thoughts, when you're standing or excuse me, sitting by the river, um, it's in a sense it kind of represents those other possibilities that are in there. But at the same time, an artist's responsibility is to make a visual image that works. And no matter what we say about it, if whatever intention is, if it visually doesn't work, then the whole thing's a kind of failure. So it's trying
yeah,
to keep all those things, together and keep them in tandem to make a piece. And then
great.
look at that and say, okay, I've gone as far as I can in that. I'll start another piece and try and solve issues and problems I had in that one in the next piece.
Hmm. If you could kind of describe the link between the works in this particular exhibition, what would you think that would be?
I think meditation. I think the fact
Yeah,
that we're humans and we think and we see a lot of good things going on and a lot of terrible things going on, and in many ways we kind of feel helpless.
great.
That so much terrible things are going on, so many terrible things, and so much is kind of going on in our own heads. And it's like,
Mm,
how do you give a space? And humans have always looked for some way of kind of kind of dealing with issues, social issues, personal issues and stuff like that. So,
yeah.
if I can create, a, a contemplative area, it's very similar to kind of the religious paintings of the past, especially sort of Eastern Orthodox icons that are very carefully put together. And when the monks are actually painting these things, there's certain prayers you say and stuff, and that actually all kind of infuses into the thing. It's like if you have people over for dinner and you're in a bad mood, the dinner is going to be really bad, no matter what you do. If you're in a great mood from the same dinner, food's going to be fantastic. So it's
Yeah,
what you
yeah,
put
yeah.
into it.
The attitude.
Yeah, exactly, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
yeah.
put that energy into it. So
Great. Really good, really good. That's your solo exhibition, and it's called Within the Hours of the Slowest Clock, and it's available to see at Oncade Tina Art Gallery in Kilkenny
yeah,
until the 18th of February. Go see it, folks, if you're in Kilkenny, or in fact, if you're near there at all, take the trip to see it and to experience that really cool new gallery. It's exciting. Can't wait to go and check it out myself when I get back to Ireland. So, best of luck with it, Morris. It's
thank
really,
you.
really exciting and a great show to have you. So, congratulations.
Thank you very much, Eamon. Thank you, Josh.
No
Absolute
problem, no
pleasure.
problem. You've been a
Really
pleasure to have you on our show today. Unfortunately, we're coming towards the end of the show, Josh. But before we go, what are we going to get our audiences to do? What do they need to do?
Like, share, subscribe, comment, send to 3 friends, buy some
Ding, ding,
swag.
ding. Buy some swag. Buy some swag. Yes, bring in the swag. Bring in the swag. We are super cool here, and you can be cool too by just checking out our website, www.newacollective.com, where you can get all of our Spill Your Tea swag. And of course, the latest episode of Cross the Line with Ben and Amo, that's my other persona, is available now to watch on all of our social channels too. So check that out. We have been looking at the Tate Modern, and we have another couple of parts to come up to follow that. So that's exciting. So do check out my my alter ego.
Lots for Harry Potter fans.
Lots for Harry Potters. Check it out. It's a bit of fun. So that is all from us today. Remember, like, share, subscribe, follow us on all your things, and do, if you wish to come on and talk to us about art and share your love like we have for it, do email us at hello@newacollective.com. Thank you all for coming and watching, and we'll speak to you very soon. Bye.